Hey, welcome. I'm Mike, and this is Mike Unfiltered. Did I ever mention I was in the military? Yeah, 20 years. Ended up flying these things here, the U.S. Navy hovercraft, the LCACs. Was a flight instructor and logged about 2,000 hours myself. So I know a thing or two about the military. One of the things I'm finding very disturbing is how they've degraded our military. They've turned it into a place for experimentation. So it is no longer a war-fighting machine. That's disturbing. The military has one purpose: to break things. And, as unpleasant as it is, to kill people. Now, we don't like to do the latter unless we have to. But sometimes we're forced to. And we have an obligation to make sure that we give your sons and daughters all the equipment they need, everything necessary to go do that job and safely return home to you. In past years, it's become more and more difficult for that to happen. They constantly funnel money from the military to other things like gay puppet shows overseas or something. I don't know. Something crazy. But that's not why we pay those tax dollars. That money is supposed to go to things here in the United States for Americans. And when we send money to the Department of Defense, we expect for it to buy bullets, beans, and bombs for our troops. Now, I saw this gradually going this direction before I retired. And I've been retired a long time, but I'm not going to tell you how long. But it's been a minute. I saw the training change. As a guy who actually trained recruits in boot camp myself, I watched the transition from what was really boot camp to something now that just isn't even anything close to boot camp. They have safe spaces. You can't punish them like you used to. Before, we turned out military individuals. I'd say we turned out men. And we did. But that was when things were segregated. Women went to a boot camp. Men went to a boot camp. We didn't have groups integrated together. Okay? We were very serious about our training. We worked hard to make sure that they received everything they would need to equip them to go forth in the world and to defend this nation and to come home alive to their families. Now it seems like it's become more important to make sure we don't hurt your feelings. We want to make sure that equity is there. Whatever happened to the day when the best person for the job was the best person for the job? That's all I care about. And I don't care. You know what? If a woman is better at it, then put her in there. If an Asian is better, or a black is better, or a white is better, I don't care. Put them in there. Isn't that what America was built on? We believed in putting the best person in the job. But that's no longer happening. What's happening now is we're making people feel good about their inabilities. So, you may not be good at flying an F-14 Tomcat or an F-18 these days, but we're going to give you a chance anyway because we don't want to hurt your feelings. So we need to go ahead and give you some training and let you go kill yourself and destroy a multi-million-dollar aircraft all in one swoop. Because after all, we need you to feel good about yourself. You know this is just as ridiculous as I do. You know that. There is no reason for this other than the people in Washington want to make sure that a certain group of people give them their support and they keep their support. See, today it's all about struggling to find out who your base is and how to keep your base so that you can get votes in the next election. That's what it's about. It's not about making sure that we do the right thing, that the government functions properly, that the military functions properly. It's no longer about that. It's about how can I get elected? How can I get in that job? How can I get in that position? Is there any money to be made on it in the side? And then let me go out to these defense contractors and get some kickbacks That's what it's all about today. It's no longer about doing the job. How did we get here? I'll tell you how we got here. We got here because we didn't pay attention to the people who were running. We watched television, and the guy who had the most money and could run the most ads could convince people that he or she was the right person for the job. And on election day, that's what you did. You went down and you voted for that. Well, how'd that turn out for us? That can't happen. I know you're busy. I get it. But you have to take a more proactive role in this. I want you to look. If you're driving down the road right now and you got your kid strapped in the back seat, I want you to take a look in the rearview mirror and look at your kid. They have a future in this country. Well, we hope they will. But they won't unless we do our job. And that job is to make sure that we pick the right people and we send them to Washington. That we pick the right people for the school board, for the city council, for the county commission, for the state legislature, the state senate, that we choose the right governor. We send the right people to Congress, to the Senate. Because right now, we got a mixed bag of trouble up there. Just because they have an R or a D in front of their name doesn't mean that they are good and that they're doing the job. Because let me tell you what I find more times than not. I've been involved with politics for a lot of years, and I've traveled all over the country doing this stuff. And every day I run into Republicans who aren't really Republicans. I know you've heard them called rhinos, Republican in name only, but it's worse than that. What I see a lot are Democrats who run as Republicans because they live in a Republican district, so they want to run as a Republican. Now, you know, for running for Congress, you don't have to live in the district. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but you don't. You can live in the northern end of the state, and you can run for a congressional seat in the southern end of the state. It doesn't matter. You don't have to live in the district. But nobody ever told you that little tidbit. It's perfectly legal running for the House of Representatives. So you get a guy in there, guy or gal, who doesn't really care about making sure your kids have the equipment they need to do the job. They're more concerned with building that base, spreading that money around so they can ensure that they stay in office and get a long career in there. A career packed with special interest and special incentives coming from that special interest. Donald Trump is working hard to try to fix this for us. It's incumbent upon each and every one of us to do our job. And our job is making sure that we are selective in who we vote for, that we send him the kind of people who will support him, because he's working for us. He doesn't really need this. He's a billionaire. He doesn't need it. That's our job. And it's also our job to raise children that are going to be good, productive Americans. I teach my kids every day how wonderful America is. I teach my grandkids. I talk to them about this nation, about how wonderful we are, where we came from, and where we're going as a people. I know we've tripped and we've stumbled some, but we can come back. And that's what we're doing. We're coming back right now. That's what this election was about. And it shouldn't be surprising to you. I know it is to some. But it shouldn't be surprising that the left is fighting us tooth and nail. They're fighting us. Well, why? Why would they be doing that? Well, I personally believe that they want to destroy the country. I spent a lot of time doing this, and I talked to a lot of people in private. I think that's where we're at. Who would be opposed to securing the border? Only people who want to let illegals come in and vote. Those are the only people that would be opposed. Who would be opposed to going through and making sure that we audit our programs and that they're operating the way they should be operated. Who would be opposed to that? Only people who want to take advantage of those programs and that money and that system. Who would be opposed to that? Who would be opposed to funding our military so that they could function properly and safely? Only people who dislike the military and want to weaken us. And that's what we've seen for a long time. You don't need me to lecture you. You've seen this. You've watched TV. You sat up at night. You watched the riots. You've listened to all the rhetoric on TV. You listen to people who spew all of this anti-American stuff, and they call you every name in the book. Tell you how racist you are when you don't have a racist bone in your body. But if you don't agree with them, that's who you are. You're a racist. Well, if you're like me, I'm done with that. I don't care what they call me. I'm an American. More specifically, I am a husband. I am a father. I am a grandfather. I am a patriot. I am a man who put my life on the line for this nation and will do it again when called upon. I am a man who believes in right and wrong. I believe that the right thing to do is always the right thing to do, no matter how you try to justify the wrong thing. It will never be right. I am a man who believes that character matters. The truth will set you free. I'm a man who still believes in some of the old ways. In some things, I open the door for my wife. I pull her chair. I compliment her. I tell her daily that I love her, multiple times a day. I try to be a gentleman because as Americans, that's who we are. And you know where I learned a lot of that? Yes, my mother taught me to be a gentleman, but I also learned it in the military. I learned how important different things are, not just by a lot of senior people who were great leaders and good friends and wonderful shipmates. I learned these things from them as well, but I learned by watching and listening as I traveled the world, and I did. I went almost everywhere. I watched the people around the world, and there are many good people throughout this world. But there are some who aren't so good. But in watching this and traveling, I got to learn firsthand just how special we are as Americans. I know. Here lately, got a lot of people telling you how arrogant that is, how mean that is, and how racist that is. That we're no better than anyone else. I beg to differ. Name me another country where we have sent masses of men and women to die on their soil. Not ours. Theirs. Name me a place that's done that. Any of them. The way that we have. Name me any country that has gathered up money, gone over, taken supplies, shiploads of supplies to aid other countries. Name me one. No one does. We leave our families for months at a time. I was in the Gulf War for almost a year. First one in, last one out. Left my baby, was a baby. And when I got home, she ran up to me. I didn't even recognize her. These are the things we sacrifice as military individuals. So when I watch Secretary Hegseth speak about reforming the military and bringing it back to his greatness, I can't tell you how much I support him in his endeavor. And when I hear Donald Trump say this, I can't tell you how much I support this, because I know what a good, sound, well-funded, well-trained military can do, not only for the United States of America, but I can tell you what it does for the entire world. Peace through strength. And while the left is trying to stop it, they can't. We right now are on a locomotive. This reform that we're doing, we're on a locomotive and we're heading down the track, and they're not going to be able to change it. We're going backwards. We're going backwards. We're going back to the days of our greatness, the days when we were a wonderful people and we stood up for what is right. That's where we're going. And we will return as the leader of the free world. We'll return to that position where people around the world look to America for safety, for strength. They look to us for how to behave. They look to us for the standard of humanity. That's what we're going back to. The left wants to keep going over the edge of the cliff. And they're doing that because they hate us. They hate America. And they hate freedom. Well, I say let them run over the cliff. But for you and I, it's time to roll up our sleeves and go back to work, doing what Americans have always done. We're going to fight. We're going to return to one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all of us. That I can guarantee you. God bless. Have a good day. I'm Mike, and this is just my thoughts on Mike Unfiltered. Have a great day.
Well, that's a wrap for this week's show.